What's up, heroes? It's your girl, Lady Pelvic with Pelvic Gaming, here to talk about one of the most ambitious and unexpected collaborations of 2019. Indie developer Brace Yourself Games and creator of Crypt of the Necrodancer combined with Nintendo's legendary IP, The Legend of Zelda. Combine these brilliant games together and we get Cadence of Hyrule, released June 13th, 2019, exclusively for the Nintendo Switch. Before we begin, I want to say a huge thank you to Rapsbury, who got me a Nintendo gift card for my birthday, which I totally used it to buy this game, so thank you so much. Now, I love The Legend of Zelda, and I played the hell out of Crypt of the Necrodancer over on my Let's Play channel, so you can imagine how overwhelmingly excited I was for this game to drop. The story is simple. We start with Cadence, the protagonist of Crypt of the Necrodancer, who somehow got teleported into another world. Go through a quick tutorial and you'll be tasked with choosing to help Link or Zelda. It honestly doesn't matter. Once you unlock the other character in your game, you're able to switch between characters. The only real difference I noticed is their starting locations. Link is in his home, Zelda in her castle. Gameplay wise, Link being able to use a spin attack and a shield, Zelda has access to Din's fire and Nehru's love. Maps are also different each playthrough, giving it a roguelike feel. Anywho, I started with my darling Link, of course, and you're tasked with stopping Octavo and his 4 champions. The story is the same for Zelda, and later in game you'll be able to travel Hyrule as Cadence. The story is simple enough. Save Hyrule from Octavo. Now the gameplay is drastically different than any other Zelda title. Cadence of Hyrule is a rhythm, roguelike adventure game. You'll move to the beat, attack to the beat, and slay to the beat. You travel across familiar lands like the Gerudo Desert or Lost Woods, encountering staple Zelda enemies and friends. Each enemy has a specific pattern on how to move. Learn that pattern and uncover their weakness. If you take damage or miss a beat, your combo multiplier will go away, meaning enemies won't drop better loot. And some items depend on a high multiplier to become more effective. One thing I love about Cadence of Hyrule is when first entering a panel, the enemies do not move unless you do. So you have to strategize, allowing you to make every movement count. Some areas have a chest with a skull on them, meaning you can't access that chest until all enemies have been defeated. Same with Sheikah tablets, which you'll want to unlock so you can just warp to that area and change between characters. The terrain also plays a huge role on how you move. For example, shallow water you'll sink into, so it takes one beat to pop out of the water, and then you'll be able to move. If you don't have the proper equipment, you'll be unable to travel certain areas. Exploration in this game is insanely fun. After beating all the enemies, you'll notice the disco floor will vanish, and you'll be able to move freely in that panel. Enemies don't come back either after a period of time. Like a traditional Zelda game, you'll want to blow up the cracks in the wall, explore mini dungeons, and cut down every bush, because you might be in for a surprise. There are different types of equipment. We have traditional Legend of Zelda items that will stick with you even after you die, like the boomerang or the fire rod. And those items require stamina. And then you have consumables, which break after being used or worn for so long. Shovels, rings, greaves, torches, and the like. I didn't mind the breakable item system. What did bother me was the lack of items. I did feel Brace Yourself Games got a little skimpy with the consumables. Look at this list of items in Crypt of the Necrodancer that didn't even make it into Cadence. All the headwear, the armor, they skimped out on some boots, some rings, and food or health items were completely omitted from shops. You see this long list of items from Crypt, never mind the DLC exclusives, and then you look at the item list from Cadence. It was a bit disappointing they cut back on consumables. However, perhaps adding more items would make this game a lot easier than it already was. Listen, I beat this game twice in roughly 2 days, and maybe because I played Crypt of the Necrodancer before, that the gameplay was natural to me. Crypt of the Necrodancer was not easy, and if you're not musically adept, this game could prove difficult as well. You do get punished for dying, mainly losing all your rupees and keys. You're taken to this mystical realm where you can purchase items to start your adventure with, rather than starting from ground zero. These items are bought with diamonds, which are a special currency per se. And that's another thing that makes this game easy. In Crypt, diamonds were rare. In Hyrule, they drop all the time. In my playthrough, I rarely used them, save for when it came to enchanting weapons. After you're done gearing up, it's time to take on a dungeon. This is where it mostly feels like Crypt, digging around to uncover a room jam-packed with enemies and hiding a chest. The dungeon is littered with tricky terrains and new enemies that you wouldn't see in the overworld. Love the fact there are multiple ways to solve a puzzle. Really pushes you to get clever with your inventory. You press through, uncovering keys to unlock doors to the next area by taking on mini-bosses. Unlike traditional Zelda dungeons, it's less about puzzles and more about surviving. If you die in the crypt part of the dungeon, you'll be returning to an all-new layout. However, dungeons are good about having outside crypt parts where you can move a block to have access to the part of a crypt you died in, rather than starting from the very beginning. If you die in the boss room, you can still walk in and give it another go. However, in Crypt of the Necrodancer, if you die at the boss, you have to do the entire crypt all over again. Speaking of, bosses are stupid easy. Bombs are your best friend. And even with their buff version shown by the darker color palette, you could just tear through these guys. At the very least, I do appreciate turning the names into musical puns and the callbacks to classic Legend of Zelda bosses. One thing I love is if you find this game too difficult or too easy, there's a way to change up your experience. Cadence of Hyrule offers several ways to play, like double time, where you always go twice as fast. Trust me, it's hard, I tried. And permadeath mode, which is sure to be rough. Or a fixed beat mode for those who have no sense of rhythm or hard of hearing to make the game accessible for everyone. Moving to the graphics, they are incredible and I am in love. They went back to the Game Boy Advance style, think Minish Cap, and I couldn't be more pleased with how this game looks. I love how each of the characters' hair bounces, how proud they look when they get an item. Watching the enemies' fluid animations, I am all over it. Brace Yourself Games did an outstanding job. I love the look of the equipment. Hyrule looked gorgeous with different terrains, completely different colors depending on where you are on the map. And lastly, what we're really all about here is the music, which is killer. For a rhythm-based game, the music has to be outstanding, something that would make you want to dance the entire time you play it. Cadence of Hyrule takes the classic Legend of Zelda music we know and love and remixes it with techno or switches it up with a slower and more relaxing beat. You'll notice when you're in the area with enemies, the music is upbeat, action-packed, and hypes you up when you take on the baddies. Once you clear a stage, the music changes to a peaceful melody, a clever way to tell the player that they're in the clear. Every terrain, every dungeon boss has their own theme. Even towns and special areas have their own rendition of their respective classic theme. Now, one area where I felt a little disappointed by the music was the boss themes. Crypt of the Necrodancer freaking nailed it with boss themes. I mean, they knocked them out of the park with their jazzy themes to conga lines. Here you heard the boss's key instruments seen by their punny names, but it wasn't the same musical creativity Crypt had. Were the tunes catchy? I personally don't think so, mainly because the bosses are so easy. The fight goes by in a blink of an eye. You don't get immersed into the beat the same way you did in Crypt or other Cadence of Hyrule themes. The boss themes felt like you had to go fast opposed to an actual creative beat. King Conga is one of the greatest rhythm game fights ever. It's a literal conga beat, and if you disrupt his conga line or move off beat, he comes after you. In Cadence, it was just offense, go fast, go fast, go fast. I was just severely let down, and that's really my only gripe with the music. My favorite tracks? Honestly, there's a lot. While I love the combat music, the battle-free zones resonated with me more. I distinctly remember stopping in the fairy fountain or Kakariko Village and just being bewitched by the beautiful music. But even more so, the opening. When you open Cadence of Hyrule, you're hit with the opening theme of Ocarina of Time. But when you go into the menu to start a new game, it overlaps with Zelda's Lullaby. It was this masterful, genius harmony. I swear, I had a hard time starting the game because the music was so damn captivating. Cadence of Hyrule, a fun, upbeat game that scores an 8 out of 10. I think it's a great game with a high replay value, but a bit of a steep price point for $25. Yes, I know, don't review a game based on its price, just review it on its own merits. I just thought I'd throw that out there. I really felt like it was a $20 game, it was just a $5 premium because it was a Zelda title. I think this game was a little too easy. I understand it being easy made it more accessible for other players. It's just coming from Crypt of the Necrodancer, I was expecting like a real challenge, like oh shit, and then it just turned out not to be. I think item drops came way too frequently, especially the diamonds, and at the same time I felt it held back on a few items from Crypt of the Necrodancer. And then frankly, I just didn't think some of the boss battles were as great as they could have been. I wanted more rhythm puzzles in my boss battles, bosses that make the music go slow, fast, maybe just randomly make the time stop. Maybe a monster with multiple arms that each had an instrument, each arm that you hacked off, one of the instruments, one of the notes would disappear and change the beat a little bit, you know, like, hire me. Anywho, I hope we get some Octavo DLC. He just seems like a character who needs some DLC. That said, let me know your thoughts on Cadence of Hyrule and my review of Cadence of Hyrule in the comments below. I read everything. Thank you so much for watching. Top box is more reviews like this, and the bottom box is my Let's Play channel. Also, consider becoming a patron. Laters!